Oh, okay. Here, 10 common American expressions that baffle people.
Afternoon, this is Xfinity Channel on Education. This talk continues with the series of talks devoted to the different cultures under the English speaking countries. And we had a talk about the UK, the English culture, Celtic, and then now we're going to talk about America. So we're going to cross the ocean, and we're here with, we will be with Autumn, who is from the United States, and Stephane, who is from Canada, and Pablo, who is Venezuelan Italian but has lived for many years and educated in the United States. And we here are going to ask the questions so that we get to understand you guys better. So, Rob Wylie and Graeme Bell. My name is Radmila, so let's get started. So, guys, the first thing that I'm going to ask you is it's weird, but apparently there is no official language in the US. How come, Autumn?
I'm not really sure why there isn't an official language, but on the federal level, there's no official language. But on the state level, some states have decided to make English an official language. I think there are about 30 states that have made English an official language. And in Hawaii, it's the only state that's bilingual, where it's English and Hawaiian.
Wow. Okay. So, Autumn, you're from New Jersey, but
Yes.
lived in Atlanta, or living in Atlanta. So, what can you tell us about these new cities? I mean, it's quite different. The accent is very different. I guess the culture.
Yeah, everything is quite different. My dad's from Pittsburgh, my mom's from New York. I happen to be born in Jersey because they were in the military at the time. So a lot of my family have a lot of northern accent, but because I spent a lot of time in the South, I kind of have a mixture between a southern and northern accent. And Atlanta's a really interesting place. We don't really pronounce our T's. People from Atlanta say Atlanta without T's. It's a great historical place, headquarters with Coca Cola, CNN, big civil rights movements, MLK, the '96 Olympics. Everything is just crazy there.
Okay, great. Stefan, you're Canadian.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, how is your culture different from the European and from the US? Can you like recap?
Well, I suppose the biggest distinction that separates Canada from the United States is the fact that we have French as an official language. Because culturally speaking, Canada is pretty well an extension of the United States in terms of society, culture, and even the way we speak. I'm sure a lot of vocabulary is British English, but apart from that, the pronunciation is very American.
Okay. And Pablo, you've lived in Tennessee for a long time.
Yo, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And so, what is your point of view? How old were you when you went to live there?
I was just turned when I first arrived to Tennessee. That was in January the 2nd, 1980. So, was to be was a fantastic living experience. That's where I went to school, and I graduated as a and to be in Tennessee, you get the real feeling of a real Southern culture. You might have heard the expression rednecks. That's where they're from, most of them.
Rednecks.
They're
No
really
idea.
cool guys. Yeah,
Okay.
very conservative state, like most of the states from to learn a lot about, first of all, country music. Who has not heard ZZ Top or wow, Willie Nelson, all these guys. Country music in Tennessee, it's like a religion. If you want to be a well-known singer, in the U.S., you must uh, present yourself at the Grand Ole Opry Theater in Oberlin. That venue is what really signs you to be perhaps a top what do you call country music singer. And I love country music. Believe it or not, I am Italian. I'm in Venezuela. And when you have a nice bottle of bourbon, Jack Daniels, which is made in
I was
Tennessee,
going
and
to
you
ask
start
you about, yeah,
listening
yeah.
to, yeah, Jack Daniels, that's good. It's good. It's good. You get to really love country music. I love it. Well, the South has given us a lot of singers, good Southern rock bands like Leonard Skinner, 38 Special, ZZ Top, Molly Hatchet, CCR, Eagles,
Yep.
excellent writers too. So the South has given a lot to the U.S. culture. Absolutely, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, if you want to ask any questions, maybe feel free, go for it. And in any case, the USA is like a melting pot for accents and cultures. So I would like, because I'm absolutely like an outsider here. So I would like to hear these accents. Can you give us examples of your local accents? It would be very interesting.
Oh wow. I can I can I can imitate my mom. She's from New York.
Okay.
Please forgive me, mom. She's always like, "What are you talking about? The cabs are here. I need a hot dog." Stuff like that. She's from New York.
Okay.
And in Atlanta, it's just very like relaxed. You're like, I'm from Atlanta. Things are just cool. It's hot Atlanta. Everyone is just
Hotlanta.
chilling, relaxing, and just enjoying the time.
Mm.
Stuff like
And the
that.
greetings, I understand that you have different greetings, like different ways of saying hello. What are they?
Yeah.
Howdy. Howdy.
Howdy. Hey. What's up? What's up, cuz? What's going on? How you doing? What you doing? Mm.
What's up, brother?
Yeah. What's up, bro? What's up, girl?
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Do you teach all these things to your students? Are they curious about them?
Sometimes they ask me and I teach them things. I have activity I made about some American slang terms that I kind of go through with my students sometimes. And I think we went over like woke and babe and tea and other stuff.
You need to send us that activity because I got no
Exactly.
idea about half of them. So
Would you be able to imitate this accent?
no, I can't even do
No way.
any English accent. Never mind, like try to do.
Hey, Autumn, how about when we say, you need to go over yonder?
Yeah, go over yonder and keep looking down there, and you'll
Yeah.
see it somewhere.
Ah,
I
don't
use
Somewhere.
you
yonder.
understand? What's that?
Yonder, like go to distance.
Ah.
Yeah,
Not a
Yeah.
clue.
it's an imaginary distance, just yonder, far away, but everyone knows what it means. Like there, just
Just
keep
keep
going.
walking, you'll
Yeah,
find it.
you'll find it
Hey,
eventually.
hey Pablo. I was
Yeah.
watching. I think it was True Detectives on Netflix the other day, and the guys are from the south, and he kept on saying "ma'am," and my girlfriend asked me, "What is ma'am?" She thought it was man at first, and I was like, "No, it's something they call women." But what is it? What does it mean? Where does it come from? Howdy, ma'am, or whatever it is you
Whoa.
go.
What was the sentence like?
I think they said howdy, ma'am. It's like a reference to
Like a
a
madam.
woman, yeah.
Oh,
Ah.
mom.
Ma'am, no M-A-M, like ma'am.
Yeah, it could be mother.
It's a mother, but it was.
Be Jamaican.
Yeah.
It could be Jamaican. Yaman. Everything be Ari man.
Or it could be slang. It's like a girl you see, like, hey ma, like someone that you're trying to talk to, and
Yeah.
like some girl you like, you're like, hey ma, and that's mother.
Okay, and Stefan, any particular accents in Canada? Or you're not. Do you have that richness of accents?
No, not really. It's because most of like for the most part, Canadian English is like a typical mid-Atlantic accent, and it's across Canada. It remains the same. Where things get interesting is when you hear Quebecers speaking in English, even when they speak in French, they've got their unique accent. Um, you know that bridge over there, Tabarnak, is coming like this. They have a very thick accent. They invent words, and they change the language, and it's strange to hear them speak both English and French. But apart from that, no, it remains constant across Canada. It's a very generic accent. Yeah.
Which is quite strange, I guess, for such a huge country, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly, because I don't know, like we talk about the South, I don't know, maybe accent South, but from east to west, because most of Canada is populated along the U.S. So horizontally speaking, like going from east to west, the accent doesn't seem to change at all, really.
Okay. In any case, both these countries, Canada and the US, have been very receptive as in terms of immigration. And so I'm Bulgarian, and I know that there are many Bulgarians over there. So my question to you would be: if I go there, will I feel at home? Are you guys welcoming a welcoming nation?
Canada is very multicultural. Ever since they passed their policy on multiculturalism in 1970, it's been a mosaic. It's been a melting pot, and in fact, you can hear different languages in public, in the streets, in the parks. You'll hear probably foreign languages than you will English. But as far as assimilating into the culture, Canada is very welcoming. It's notorious for being multicultural and being proud of it. And very little racism and discrimination. Well, racism and discrimination exist everywhere in the world, but it's definitely not felt in Canada. People seem to mix together very nicely, and yeah, no, I think you would feel well in Canada.
All right.
They have different laws and different ways of looking at things in Canada. You have like kind of I think one of the mayors of the capital cities is the gay rights. They promote quite a lot of that. The Pride Fair seems to be quite big there, and you have quite relaxed drug laws as well. Is that right, Stephane?
Yeah, they've just legalized marijuana for recreational consumption, so you can buy it legally in shops and smoke it in public. So yeah, there's very liberal. It's a liberal government. But speaking of government, we actually have the same government as the UK. We have a prime minister. We have parliament, members of parliament, and we still we're part of the Commonwealth. We have the
I was
Queen
going to
on
say you
all
have
our
the royal
coins.
family
really?
as well. Yeah.
Didn't know
Yeah,
that.
you've still got the royal family, so...
Okay.
Cool.
And what about time? Because I read somewhere that, especially in the USA, probably in Canada as well, time is very, very valuable. It's even like, or as valuable as money. So time is one of the first things that they teach to foreign students, like how to say it and what time is it, because time really matters. Yeah, apparently. So why so, Autumn?
I don't know, but we have this expression in English I've always heard: time is money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Everyone is just worried about being on time, getting things done because it's just so busy. You have a lot of things you need to do. So you don't want to feel like you're wasting your time because you think I could be doing something else. And money talks.
Okay, and actually, maybe because of that, you guys are known as being very direct. So not, I mean, that doesn't have to do with politeness, but very direct people. So you speak your mind, and you're like open a negotiation with straight to the point. Is that so?
Yeah, I would believe so. I think we're more direct. I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't
So
like to go around the bushes.
Beat around the bush.
Beat around the
Beat around the
bush.
bush, man.
okay, and well, money is God in the USA. Is the same in Canada, Stefan?
Yeah, in fact, people oftentimes when that usually, for example, where your location is, where you live, people will try to they'll base where they decide to live on where they work in order to save time. Like like it's funny because here in Madrid, you can spend a lot of time commuting, getting point A to point B. Canadians they tend to make big decisions like where they're going to live based on how much time they can save, because the less time you spend commuting and working, the more time you can spend with family. Nowadays in Canada, the idea of a traditional family no exists. It's impossible for one of the parents in a family to be the sole provider. Both spouses need to work, and so time is becoming more precious. Obviously, statistics show that, parents spend so little time with their children already to begin with. So yeah, time is very important, and that does affect the way people behave. They're very punctual. They're very transparent. They're direct to the point. Sure, that has an influence for sure.
Okay,
Yep.
Excellent. Rob, do we have any questions?
Yeah, so we got some questions from Julie. So, this one's maybe for you, Autumn. So, how do students perceive the American lifestyle, and then how does that affect their language learning? So,
Wow, the lifestyle. Everyone, they watch a lot of movies,
yeah,
and everyone is like, when I go to class, they're like, is it just like the movies? Is New York just like that with the big buildings? Do you have the really big hammers? Like, is everything so big? And sometimes I show them a picture of my house and my car, like things that are typical in the U.S., and they're just like, "Wow, it's so big! Like it's just like films. It's just like Friends." They're really, I don't know, they seem really interested and they like it.
mm,
Okay.
perfect. And well, another just going on from that as well. So Julie again is asked, so why do you think that students prefer one accent over another? So sometimes you got someone who prefers maybe a UK accent or a US or Canadian or whatever. Why do you think that is, Graeme?
I don't know.
I think it's
Oh, sorry, Autumn. On you go.
No, go ahead.
Well, for me,
I
it's...
said,
you go, Autumn. You go.
Ladies first.
Okay, I'll talk. Now, there's one thing that my students constantly ask me on every class. Teacher, which is the right way to pronounce a specific word? And sometimes you have different options based on where you're from, where your English is from. So I'll keep telling them, listen, they are all correct. There is no a precise and unique way to pronounce a word because the accents vary from one place to another.
Sure.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
No, I pretty much every time I have an opportunity to make a distinction between the variations on how something can be pronounced or how vocabulary could be spelt or how vocabulary may even vary itself, I always capitalize on that opportunity to show students the different variations. And
Right.
again, the trick is to avoid cultural bias and to inform them that there is better.
Yeah.
It's a question. It's just a
Exactly.
question presenting it to them so that they know that there are variations which exist. And I think if you integrate that into the lesson plan, it makes it interesting for them. It's always, and then of course that always when you start talking about a phonetic point or a vocabulary item, variations with expressions and idiom, that always leads to something else, and it intrigues the students, I find, and I think they appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 It just gives a little bit extra to your class, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
able to do that. I mean, I can't claim to know all the American terms at all, but sometimes, if I say, oh, I just took the lift, and I'll be like, oh, I say lift, I'm from the UK, but in the States it's the elevator or whatever, or they say, the other day I had pavement and sidewalk, and I said pavement, and they were like, what's the pavement? But they knew the American one, probably because they've heard it in a film or a series or whatever, so they knew sidewalk, and I said pavement, they were like, what's this? So I said the American, but obviously I can't do that all the time because I don't know all of them, but I just think, like you said, Stephane, it just kind of gives a little bit extra to your class, and students really appreciate it.
Yeah. And Autumn, you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah. I wanted to say, like, with some of my students, they find that my American accent is very easy to understand. So sometimes they have preferences, like if they've been watching a lot of American shows, they just are accustomed to it, and that's why they American teacher. And I've had some students that say, "Oh, I prefer the British accent because I've just been watching a lot of British shows." So for them, it's just preference. But I always encourage my students to listen to other, especially when they travel, because they're not always going to hear a British accent or an American teaching. You're going to hear a lot of different people with different English accents. So I always encourage to have different teachers with different.
Yeah.
I always ask my students. It's a question that which accent do you find it easier to understand? And interestingly, the response is 50-50. Half the times they'll say British, half the time American. And usually when you ask why, the answer is because it's easier for me to understand.
Yeah.
I don't know why for some people American English is easier to understand. Maybe it's because they watch enough television in English. Other people find it difficult because a lot of sounds get assimilated in American English. Some people find that the British English is more articulate, clear. Other people will say it's more difficult to understand. But it's very interesting if you experiment and you ask your students, because I ask all my students that question, and it's about 50-50 the response, interestingly, here in Spain, in Madrid.
And a lot of tones are different, you know, like I call it a bottle of water. How do you say it? Pablo, this would be more for you.
Yeah, that's the sound that doesn't exist in Canadian English very much, is the glottal stop.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We don't.
Right.
American English doesn't use glottal stops very often.
You get water, right? Yeah.
That's different. That's like a flap or a tap. It's like we the way we say it, it's like butter. It's like your tongue hits the alveolar ridge really, really fast. Those are unique sounds that we have in American English as well.
Yeah, like water. It's water.
That's
We all just say water now.
I also have to constantly remind my students that the T becomes a D sound in American English.
Right.
And that the British are much more articulate and they do pronounce the T clearly, whereas it gets assimilated into American English. The T more often than not. The only exception I would imagine for the initial position, but pretty well most of the time T is pronounced as D.
Right. My grandmother. My grandmother used to hit me across the back of the head if I didn't pronounce both T's. And she'd be there, can I get some butter? Butter.
For us, butter has like a decent butter.
Wow.
Tea. Even though it's written with tea, butter.
Right.
Autumn, you mentioned a little bit about accents there, and we did it a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the different British accents. Where would you say would be the most difficult kind of accent in the States for maybe someone who's not a native speaker to understand? Is there a city or a state that has a really difficult accent for whatever reason?
Maybe Kentucky.
Probably, I mean, if you deep south, that could
Louisiana?
be difficult. Like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, maybe parts of Texas could be difficult.
Right.
New York, Staten Island, Long Island could be a bit difficult in that area. And maybe in the accent in Boston is a little different. I don't think it would cause a lot of problems, but it's just a different sound.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched Family Guy, that's how.
It's not even an accent. It's just a few key vowels that are pronounced.
Yeah.
Pablo, you've got a southern drawl when you speak. A little bit.
Would you say so?
A little bit. You're not quite.
Well, I lived in the South.
Could you do an impersonation of like the proper southern kind of drawl?
Oh God, what would you like me to say? Oh, whoa, you got me.
He's put you on the spot, man. He's put you on the spot.
Can you do a Matthew McConaughey impression? He's always the easiest one to go with.
Y'all come into the meeting?
Yeah, hey y'all. Right here now.
I've got a comment here from Julie, and I'll be interested to see if you guys agree with this. Yeah, so she said, as an American, I feel like I have the responsibility to be an ambassador for my home country, so I'm hyper aware of my Americanisms. So do you guys kind of feel the same as well, that you kind of have to be an ambassador for your country?
Yes, I really do feel like that.
Yeah.
A lot of my students, when they say, "Oh, you're American," and they ask me questions about why things are this way in the U.S., and they just have a lot of curiosities because they're not sure about everything that they see on TV is exactly true, or if there's some just stereotypes. Although The Simpsons have been known to some things, so I would say The Simpsons are pretty true in some cases. They've known to predict things. So yeah, I feel like it's a big job, you know, because you're just one person. You have to like represent everyone.
How do you find about teaching? Because like what we teach is English and American English and British English. Which do you find easiest to teach for the student? Because there are like differences. There's some things that are just not used in American English, and there's different kind of grammar points. Which would you teach? I mean, do you teach American English or British English or a mix of both?
I teach a mix of both. I think it really just depends on what my students want and then the activity. But it's a kind of like a mixture of both. But I try not to confuse them. If they're comfortable with British English, I try to keep it towards British English. If they say no, switch it up.
Yeah.
I like to keep it.
Well, it's nice that the texts that are used, we have a nice variety of different dialects in the vocabulary, and of course, whether it's an article that comes from an American, like I'm not sure where these texts comes from. They're obviously semi-adapted, authentic materials that are published, and it's nice that there's a wide variety of different. And I think this is done intentionally. I imagine. That you try to expose the students to texts that have different genres and different styles, different dialects, different vocabulary. And I'm always like, as soon as I see a word that is distinctly British and that is different in American English, I take that opportunity to tell the student about it and show them that there are variations amongst the different language, amongst the dialects. Yeah.
Even in terms of spelling as well, I was going to say I had one the other day and the word colour came up in a text and it was without the U that we would put in Britain. And obviously it's just the OR at the end over there, and then there's neighbour, and there's all these other kind of different words like that. That there's the two forms. Apart from centre, which is RE all day long. I don't care what you're doing. It's not ER, it's RE.
No, it's ER, center.
This is my pet hate. Like literally, I can't see it. I have to go around correcting it. It's the one that annoys me.
No, it's nice that you say that, Stephane, because actually all the activities, they represent the diversity that we have here in Oxinity. So I guess that each author of the activity writes according to their way of speaking.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the richness that we have here. That's amazing.
Well, that's the beauty of Oxinity, is that we're not on specific publications of, there's no, when you're using didactic materials and it's either a British publication or an American publication, so you don't have very much variety, whereas we're constantly exposed to different varieties of the dialects. And I think students appreciate this. Well, at least I appreciate it as a teacher, which is why I always point out to the students the variations, and and I always find that an interesting discussion point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk briefly about university life? Because first of all, it's
Love it.
we might have we might have people that want to study there. So okay, what is it like?
Just like the films, almost exactly.
Just like Animal House, right?
Yeah,
The
just like
movie.
that. Parties every weekend, sororities, fraternities. Yeah. No.
Spring break.
Oh yeah, spring break.
Oh.
This sounds like there's some stories
I
from
know,
off here.
when we're off air, I want to hear about these spring break.
I've got quite a few stories of my own.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to hear.
Do we want to know?
You don't want to hear.
Off camera.
Do you guys have Frosh Week dates?
Freshman week.
We call it Frosh.
Freshman.
The freshman week? Yeah. Hunting week.
I mean,
What happens in freshman week?
It's a welcome week. You welcome all the new students. You have all the clubs, the activities, fraternities, and there's not a lot of classes. It's just a big party. You move into the dorms and you enjoy the environment before you really to.
Yeah, and all sophomore and junior are just looking at the new girls coming to college.
AKA Pablo.
I mean, my university was great. My college, it's awesome. It's in the middle of Atlanta. It has a lot of connections. I lived on the dorm for 2 years. It was great, I got to pick my classes. I don't know if that's something that's common here in Spain, but in the US, you can pick the times of your class. So,
that's cool.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
if you don't want any classes,
No mornings.
you don't get it.
No, you don't
I
have
would
that here. No.
No, in
In the UK
either.
neither.
You get the timetable this early.
Yeah. all my classes started at 12 o'clock. I finished at 3:30.
Oh, what?
It was classes on Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Oh my
Who's that
Were
guy?
you in AHA?
That's me back in college.
What year was that? Do we know?
80s, early 80s.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yes, good old days.
I'm looking forward to these stories, Pablo.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Nice, very nice. All right. So, what else? Anything else? Just to close, because we have to go. Like a recommendation for students who want to go to the States and study there.
Do it.
Do it.
Yes.
Just do it. Just do it. You'd be surprised. You'd learn a lot. You meet a lot of people, and I think it's a once in a lifetime experience. I studied abroad in Spain. It was a once in a lifetime experience, so I think it's a great opportunity.
You know what? I don't know what colleges or universities in Europe look like, but in the States, there's something, and I'm sure in Canada is the same. When you go to college in the States, there's something I really, really loved was how much time you spend on campus.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on campus. You spend most of your time on campus, not only studying, but I don't know, meeting people, parties. There's a lot going on campus. So life on campus is fantastic.
You get a lot of sports as well, is that right?
A
Oh
lot,
yes.
yes. Oh
College
yes.
college sports, college basketball, March Madness, college football,
We grew up in the wrong
SEC,
country.
best area ever.
Yeah, the
Best
the
division
campuses
ever.
in Canada are very ample. The premises themselves are huge. It's
Yeah.
like being it's like its own city, and it's a
Wow.
very well equipped city because it has everything.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So, well,
Spring
it's a
break.
little bit late for us, but maybe for the future generations, we highly recommend it. Okay, guys, well, that was great. A great talk, a pleasure having you. Many thanks for these insights. And we will continue next week with some tips on how
Yeah,
to.
we're gonna look at the kind of the point that the teacher plays, taking material and then taking it into reality, so students can really develop through your practice.
Right.
Fantastic.
Good.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Cheers.
great weekend,
All right.
and
Thank
we'll see
you.
you on Friday.
All right. See
Thank.
ya.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Stephane.
Bye.
Bye, Autumn.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.